Hello, everyone, and welcome back down here to the Gamer's Den with me, your host, Jordan, your master of lore and storyteller extraordinaire. Now, we are continuing right on along, rolling through with our DM guide, taking a specific look at D20 Modern and what we can do to fix some of the more broken aspects of the game, of which there are plenty. But to me, it's all worthwhile just because, one, maybe it's the nostalgia I've tied up with it, but I just really love this game. I love that it is flexible and adaptable despite what that flexibility and adaptability means as far as maybe some of the initial things in the core rulebook having a certain lack of flavor to them. But one of the most broken things, without a doubt, has to be the wealth bonus system, which is fundamentally tied to character creation. So, for part two today, we're going to take a look at how the wealth bonus system normally works, and then we're going to explore two options for just fixing that a little bit more, making it a little bit better. So, to that end, let's just go ahead and dive right on into this, shall we? To start off, for your wealth bonus, how it works is you make a wealth check anytime you want to purchase equipment, which this wealth check is 1d20 plus the character's current wealth bonus. This can increase as the character gains wealth and decreases with purchases. The character can gain wealth by, well, when they level up, if they have points in the profession skill, they roll a profession check at each level, or however many intervals the DM deems to be appropriate over whatever kind of a given period of time. And a high enough score can add 1, maybe 2 or 3 points to your wealth bonus overall. Generally not higher than that, really. And even 3 is being really flexible with it. So, when you go to purchase equipment, if you succeed on the wealth check, you gain the object. And if you fail, well, you just can't afford the object at this time, or the service if you're looking to purchase the services of, well, some specialized role, some person, electrician, detective, etc. So, if your wealth bonus is equal to or greater than the DC, you just automatically succeed. And with that automatic success, what that means is that it's the cost is so insignificant compared to what your overall resources are that it just fits right in without creating any sort of a hitch. But if you do purchase an object or service with a purchase DC that's higher than your current wealth bonus, your wealth bonus takes a penalty, well, a decrease of 1, representing the time and resources that you have to invest into acquiring the object and hiring somebody's services. And to generate your starting wealth bonus, you roll 2d4, you add in whatever your occupation bonus might be, which is anywhere from 1 to, I believe it's a +3 or 4 at the highest, and adding in the windfall feat if you've taken it. So you can see if you've got a good roll, getting a 7 or 8 on the 2d4, taking that +4 there, and then the windfall feat, you could start off with 14, 15 pretty easily, which will allow you to acquire so much equipment in the just even in the basic listings for the book and so many other resources that you're not really going to struggle to buy much overall. And really quickly, especially with the first couple of levels, you can acquire so many items through so many other methods in the game using various skill checks or whatever situations arise. So you can easily acquire weapons depending on how combat heavy your game is, and yeah, it just gets out of hand really fast. And to top it off, you can also increase your wealth bonus by making it's described as a one-time bonus for making the sale of a particular item. Some people have interpreted that as it's a temporary thing, it's a one-time bonus for the next couple of purchases or whatever, or it's just a one-time permanent increase because you only get it one time because you can only sell that item once without having to go through a whole lot of rigmarole and scheming and shenanigans to get it back and sell it again. But that also presents some unique complications right there, or at least I think it does, that's not necessarily addressed in the wealth and equipment section. Because, well, think about a Shadow Chasers campaign, or even just a regular game where this you just follow what D20 Modern was mostly modeled off of, and that's action movies. Most of the equipment you're going to be grabbing is going to be stuff from combat. You're going to be picking up different firearms, other weapons, vehicles from fights, from crime scenes, basically. That's a whole lot of trouble right there. And really, whatever fence you're going to is not going to be giving you full price, especially not on any items that are hot that were involved in crimes recently. So that presents some interesting complications right there that could be fun, but also, it's kind of hard to explain away the effects of gaining wealth from selling these items, especially when the wealth bonus system was put in there as a way of hand waving a lot of that mess away. I get why it's there. I certainly see how handy it is because most games you're not going to be focusing on, the intricacies of high finance, mortgages, taxes, insurances, and the like, and the altogether upkeep and costs of all those different things associated with all of that. So this just kind of lets you wave away a lot of that stuff that is associated with modern day life, which, I don't recommend you get into that unless that is specifically what your game is all about and that's what your players are on board for. So, you know, I can see its uses, but it's like so many other things with this game that I very dearly love. It's very ripe for abuse. So to that end, let's go ahead and take a look at our first option for fixing the wealth bonus system. And this one just involves just a tiny bit more bookkeeping. Not as if you were tracking all of your expenses month to month, day to day, week to week, all of that fun jazz. But you divide up your wealth into two separate categories. One is permanent wealth, the other one's current wealth. Think of permanent wealth as resources that have value, but you cannot immediately extract cash value out of them, not without some kind of paperwork. So think like stocks that pay out dividends, property value, other things like other investments. Like if you have gold or silver kind of stockpiled, like some doomsday preppers do, these are things that do have value, but there's a certain amount of process that goes into getting money out of them. Like, you can't just walk up to the ATM and exchange the gold for cash. You got to go through a whole process, going to a pawn shop or some other outfit to exchange the cash value for those materials. The other is current wealth, which is basically the loose spending cash that you have on hand that you can just go and get out of the ATM. So, to figure out permanent wealth, you generate your starting wealth score as per normal, and you have the option of buying more permanent wealth, uh, basically purchasing it through your current wealth points. Permanent wealth can be increased by spending 4 points of your current wealth to buy 1 point of permanent wealth. This represents character investment in those resources, adding on to whatever property you have, increasing the value, building up a nicer house, or making additions to a nice house, or just even buying more land, or buying more securities, stocks, bonds, etc., etc. So with to figure out your current wealth, after you have your permanent wealth score figured out, you calculate your living expenses. It's a rough estimate of what the rent or mortgage might be, depending on how nice of a place you're living in, insurance, your general grocery bills, what all that looks like. How extravagant a lifestyle are you living? Then you and your DM, you figure out what that score looks like. You subtract that from your permanent wealth, and the remainder is what your current wealth is starting out. And this can increase over adventures and profession checks over a short period. Now, by over a short period, it's usually 2 weeks to a month, and usually not longer than that. So, this is one of those things where you're encouraged to spend and make use of your current wealth because it's going to fluctuate month to month. If you have excess, certainly investing it in your permanent wealth can be useful, because then you just have that permanent wealth built in there that you can tap as a resource. And it's something that can build, build, and build. And it builds more slowly than the regular wealth bonus system does. But if you need to tap into that permanent wealth, when you take 1 point out, you get of permanent wealth, you get 4 points of current wealth, or at least that's the idea on how it's supposed to work. So that can be handy and useful, and I certainly see the value of it. There's only one extra step of bookkeeping there, and that's figuring out what your current wealth score is by giving a rough, general-ish estimate of what kind of a lifestyle your character is living. And for a good example that kind of fits okay with how to kind of get a grasp on that, Shadowrun actually has a section for lifestyle and what that cost kind of looks like. Granted, it's calculated in new yen rather than dollars and the like, but still handy, useful, and can be a good relative guide on figuring that out. And even if you don't have this, you can just hop online here, go to Google, just research what the Shadowrun lifestyle ratings look like. And that'll give you all the information that you need to know. But that's just option one, and it's certainly not a bad option because it still leaves room for having, actual loot beyond just the wealth system there. You can have all the different trophies, unique items, and like that you grab. But option two for us is just not using an abstract system. Generally assume things like living expenses are cared for and already taken care of in the character's budget, unless that's somehow relevant to a specific plot that you're running or is something particular to a character's story. Like they are starting off with money troubles or they're on the run, so maybe they have an excess of cash on hand, but no real permanent investments, something like that. So otherwise, you just use cash. You role play out or use skill checks for different purchases. And really, the players certainly aren't going to use their regular cars on heists or monster hunts. So they're going to have a certain overlay of different materials that they have on hand, different resources, because when they're going to their regular 9 to 5, they're not going to be showing up in their in their armored war wagon that's loaded down. It looks like something out of Furiosa's war rig on Mad Max Fury Road. Yeah, it's going to be a regular four-door sedan or some kind of SUV, whatever helps them blend. But when it comes time to hunt, comes time to deal with whatever local gang is causing problems, or drive off to go participate in that illegal underground kumite where it's no holds barred fighting to the death, well, then they're going to show up in whatever style is appropriate. And something that helps them keep a little bit more off the radar, maintain that separation between their regular life and their more unusual lifestyle. But those are just two options there. And oh, I should mention that much like what I said for going online and researching the different lifestyle ratings from Shadowrun, if you're not sure what an item costs, just go online, Google it, go to Amazon, go to, well, eBay's maybe not a good example, but there's so many different resources online. There's so many different catalogs listed. You can look up the value of different firearms, different swords, and gosh, swords just change depending on who makes them, how they're made. Yeah, there's lots of different things that you can look into, so you can get down to the exact level of nitty gritty that you want to, or keep things general enough and kind of ballpark it that you don't have to really necessarily worry about an extreme level of bookkeeping, but you can also do that if you want to. But these are just a couple of suggestions here. Certainly there's a lot more out there online. These two just seemed like the most sensible to me overall, and generally what most groups seem to default to. either these two exact options or something similar or a slight combination of the two. Because, let's face it, I'm old school. I like knowing how much treasure I have, down to the last couple of copper pieces. Or at least I do enjoy that. I certainly don't mind just tracking everything in gold and whatever gems and unique items. I mean, I like having crystallized fire from the elemental plane of fire. I like petrified dragon hearts that have crystals growing out through them, or frozen vampire mist. Just a vampire that went to its misty form, got caught in some torrential storm of magic ice, and is now permanently frozen in place. Things like that that are just so unique, definitely have some kind of crazy value to them, but are just so evocative of so much more than just that monetary value. But like I said, that's me. Certainly, there's more than one way to take a look at all of this, and really, there's no right way to play it, just as long as everybody's all on the same page in your group and is having fun. So, go ahead and leave your thoughts down below. What are some ways that you enjoy tracking wealth? I mean, the hand waving certainly is useful and kind of keeps more of the focus on the different role playing, the different combat or skill encounters. But there's also plenty of people that like having that detail, that like ticking off boxes and just amassing their hoard, even if it's an imaginary one on paper. Go down and leave your thoughts down below. And if you enjoyed today's video, well then hell, since you're heading down to the comments section anyways, why not go ahead and click on that like button? And if you enjoyed today's video, there's going to be a couple more over here popping up that I'm sure you're going to enjoy. And if you've been enjoying the content here overall, then hell, why not consider subscribing and become a regular member down here at the Gamers Den? I know I'd certainly be happy to have you, and the more people to talk to, the so much the better, because I love swapping these stories. But with that said, I have been your host, your master of lore and storyteller extraordinaire. Thank you all so much for your time, and you all have yourselves a good night.